I look at a burrito as a flavor delivery system, and I put anything you could think of in there.
The food job that we're exploring today is Product Development Manager. The professional behind the food job is Kaylah Farina, Product Development Manager at Sigma USA.
I do the whole formulation process just to make sure that what we want as that gold standard, as that perfect, bow wrapped thing, can be replicable as it sits in the plant level.
In this episode, we'll learn how product developers take an idea from concept to production.
I call it a mess-free chili dog on the go, which nobody can say they're going to go order a chili dog and then drive down the street eating it in the driver's seat.
How to bridge the gap between chefs, scientists, and business teams.
That's why happy hours are such a thing. It's to go out with the colleagues, even if it's the guy that you were just yelling at in the conference room because, they're delaying your timeline. Go have a beer with them. And then you'll probably solve it over the beer more than you're going to solve it in the conference room.
And how to use your unique background, even something like theater, to stand out in your career.
I've had a lot of interviews where people have said, what is one thing that sets you apart that, might seem a little odd? And I'm just like, theater. Great. Well, I am the product development manager for Sigma US. We are a global company, so this is the US division of Sigma Alimentos. Global headquarters are in Monterrey, Mexico, and then we have segments in Central America, Latin America, Europe, and then of course North America. And so our corporate office is in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's where I work. And this is my test kitchen. And so I develop new products for the company. So I develop new products for the retail brands. We have about 10 different retail brands, and then our food service division. Most of my time is spent on new items for the food service division. I think majority of where they need the culinary support is really for food service, for QSRs and C-stores. Everybody's always looking for LTOs and things that are new and catchy. And, LTOs is a limited time offer. And so I want to make sure that
You're already ahead of me.
I always throw these acronyms
You're already
out.
ahead of me.
And so I just want to I want to make sure that's clarified. But yeah, so for limited time offers or for, updating their menus, they always want to be, on the forefront of something new, something else to bring in new customers, keep those repeat customers coming back. So that's what I do is I try to make food exciting.
Gosh, that sounds like the dream job. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So we know kind of what you do,
Yeah.
but what does that entail? Because you like you mentioned, you have a beautiful kitchen behind you. Does that mean that you're just cooking all day? That's it, like 100%, or is there more to it?
No, there's a lot more to it. So we basically work, it depends. So sometimes we have an idea that comes from our marketing team. Sometimes we have an idea that comes from our food service team. And then we essentially figure out a category that needs development, or we figure out like a blank space in the market that we would like to fill. And so, we come up with a concept, and then most of the time I'll take that concept and we'll go out into the world and go try things along the flavor profile or that specific dish at different restaurants. I'll get different retail items that fit that profile. So like if we're doing a chocolate chip cookie, right? So we would go out to bakeries around the area. We would go to the retailed bakery. We would go to the frozen section. We would go get cookie dough. We would go get all these different things, and we would make a million different types of cookie. And then we would try each one of them, and we would figure out flavor profile, where everything hits, what the commonalities are, what the color is, what is the chip dispersion, what are common ingredients between them, what are different textures, what do you like in an overcooked cookie, do you like a soft gooey cookie, do you like something that's more blonde, do you like something with more molassesy, more brown sugar notes versus like white sugar notes. And there's all these different like experience things. And so within the experience, what are some attributes that we want to make sure we're hitting in our product? And so then we try to tie in what are the commonalities, and then we start formulating from there. So then I make what's called like a benchmark. So like I call it the gold standard. So we basically make the culinary version, make it like, your gold standard, your pretty, perfect thing that you would put out in a restaurant. And then, okay, how do we make this replicable? If this is in fact what we want to be able to put out into the market, let's then take this and we're going to make it a little bit more functional. We're going to make sure it doesn't lose moisture. We're going to make sure that, if it has to be shelf stable, it can be shelf stable. If it can be frozen, it's going to be frozen. Are we selling it as a dough? Are we selling it as a bite? Is it going into QSR? So it's going to be, cooked in their store how can we make it replicable in their store? Is it going to be cooked in a C store? Is it something that we want them to be able to just throw into a turbo chef? So like it's already pre-cooked, so they would just reheat it, or are we giving them a dough that they would actually cook up themselves? So it really just depends on like what the end use is, who the main customer is, who the consumer is, what we want that experience to be. And then we just kind of, yeah, we make it replicable. So we make a bunch of repeats in the kitchen, and then we scale that up. So I'll make like a bench version, like a pound, and then I'll make like 10 pounds. And so as long as the formula scales from 1 pound to 10 pounds, pretty much you know that it's going to scale okay in the plant. And then we'll send it to the plant. They'll make their version, send it back to me. I'll say, yes, it hits all the boxes, exactly what I expected. Or, hey, let's, tweak a couple things. Maybe I didn't understand that the equipment could only do this. So let's adjust the formula so it compensates. And yeah, and then we'll get a happy product. And then we're like, great, let's go sell it. And so if we have a customer who asked for it, we take it to them, get their approval. If they have tweaks, then we come back and tweak it and we send them again. And then if it's just something that we're going to push out to everybody, we send it to sales, let everybody try it, get excited about it, and then they go take it and put the baby out into the world.
Okay, wow. Okay, I think I have to
Yeah.
like I'm kind of I think I'm trying to wrap my head around just because I guess I'm used to many of the guests that I speak with, like they're an industry specific. So it's like we work at a dairy company, so we only produce like dairy, milks, yogurts like that. But then it sounded like you said dough, and then I swear you've worked on burritos. So like just to make sure
Yep.
I get my head properly, like you work on all different types of foods.
I work on all sorts of stuff right now. So our company, our main brand is Bar S Foods, and so we have, hot dogs, sausages, deli meats, corn dogs, bacon, and then we have multiple Hispanic brands. We have the food brand FUD. We have La Nortanita. We have Menu del Sol. We have Longmont, and then we have the Fiorucci brand, which is our European heritage. That's all like salumi charcuterie. And then we have Los Altos we just acquired, which is a cheese company out of Los Altos, California. So we have a number of different retail brands in the meat and cheese space. And then on the food service side, I do a lot of burritos, taquitos. Right now, we're working in different like bites, savory, sweet. So I do savory options, dessert options. And when you think of a burrito, I don't work on just like a bean burrito, like things that you would
Yeah.
expect as a burrito. I look at a burrito as a flavor delivery system, and
Okay.
I put anything you could think of in there. So the first thing that I developed for the company was a chili cheese dog burrito, and it is a full length beef frank with an all beef chili, diced cheddar cheese wrapped in a tortilla, like dipped in a chili seasoning batter, and then deep fried. And that thing is talk about craveable. It is so good. I love it, and it is not just because I made it. Like that thing is, it is. It's so good. Um, but yeah, like I try to think really outside of the box, and I call it a mess free chili dog on the go, which nobody can say they're gonna go order a chili dog and then, like, drive down the street eating it in the driver's seat. But with this one, you can. And so, that's the kinda
Okay.
thing I try to think about. I try to think of, like, very outside of the box and, what can we bring into the burrito space as more of just, like, a cleanly on-the-go option.
Fun. Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So now I'm doing dessert ones too. So we have a churro that's out in the market. It's a caramel churro, so it's like a wintry, worthery type like
Mhm.
caramel. Very like brown butter notes, vanilla notes, like super nice winter caramel with hints of cinnamon, and then it's a tortilla wrapped in like a cinnamon sugar coating, and
Sounds pretty good.
it's
It
delicious.
sounds
It's
pretty good.
sweet. It is rich and sweet, but it is everything you want on, like, a nice winter night, so it's good.
Ah, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so that helps solve the you do a lot, and I think
I
very
do a
very
lot.
exciting.
Yeah.
And then so I guess now I'm thinking you're in a test kitchen, and then again, we associate
Mhm.
being in a kitchen with the chef, and then you make the food, and then it goes to the customer. But it sounds like you mentioned like production and that. So where do you sit in the company? Like how does that process work from you to the customer? Because that usually I'm used to food scientists being the ones to kind of design. So I like kind of
Yeah.
tell me where you sit within the company.
So my background is culinary, but I also have a degree in culinary science, so which is essentially food science for the chef. So I'm trained in both culinary and
Okay.
food science. So I'm able to fit both of those roles. So I do the gold standard and make that replicable in the plant level. So I do the whole formulation process just to make sure that what we want as that gold standard, as that perfect, bow wrapped thing can be replicable as it sits in the plant level. And I understand the parameters in the plant, like the different capabilities of the equipment and like the different textures that, the equipment can handle and like max weights, max fill rates, things like that. That way I can try to manipulate the formula so that we get the exact same thing I made two of in 2000 or 20,000. Like I can, I try to make it so that what I just made and presented to you as a concept is exactly what you're going to get coming out of the plant.
Okay. Uh, is
Yeah.
that sounds like a skill that's been built up over the years. Is
It
or is it like
has.
a
It
talent?
has. I mean, it's definitely, I've done it at, well, this company, but also my last company. So my last company, I was fortunate enough to work in a really small company. It's called Garden
Okay.
Lights. Now it's called Veggies Made Great. And so there were very few of us in corporate. And so, I did everything from ideation and benchtop to scaling it up in the plant. I helped with food photography for the packaging and worked with marketing on that. And then I would take it out to consumer shows on the weekends. I would work with sales for customer shows, like or customer sales meetings. And like I would have my hand in everything. And so it was really cool to be able to go from a small company getting your hands on everything to then coming to a big company where you're typically just like a kind of a cog on a wheel. Like you have your spot and you do your job and then you just pass it off to the next person. And now I'm in a role in a big company where I can still do start to finish. So I still go on sales meetings here. I still go out to those expo shows and go present stuff to the market. Still work one-on-one with the customer, or I work one-on-one with marketing with the end consumer in mind. So we can do, a little bit of both, but having the knowledge of being able to scale something has been tremendously helpful for my role.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that because scaling is a whole nother ballpark in terms of like you mentioned about making it the cheese dog that doesn't get all over you. Like there's so much more thought to it. So like can we walk through maybe that process about how you went from ideation to the testing to like really get a grasp of, what you're doing in your role?
Yeah. Oh god, so I think one of our customers actually came to us with this idea of, a chili cheese dog. It's a roller grill item. So it's meant to be on a roller grill in a gas station, something that you can come up, you see it rolling and you just kind of grab it and go. And so they, basically I think it was an item that they either used to have or they had an idea for it and they were just like they would be awesome if we could get this. Could you do something like this? And so they're like that sounds like a great idea. Let's try it. And so, all of our burritos are hand rolled, which is really cool. And so, a lot of companies can't say that. And so the fact that it's hand rolled and it's a manual process really gives us a lot of leniency on how and what we can put into the products. So being able to extrude a full chili sauce and being able to place, a full length frank into it and then like wrap it and it's a good enrobement. It's a great ratio of sauce to frank. So it's a 4-ounce product. It's like a 50-50 fill ratio. So I mean, like every bite, you get every little thing. It's a really good experience. And for me, I mean, I will not put something out into the market unless I'll eat it myself.
Pretty good rule.
Or unless it's and yeah, I mean, it's like at the end of the day, we're all consumers, right? So unless somebody is going to taste something and then go like, "Oh my god, that was amazing. I want to go back and get it." Again, or I'm gonna go to this gas station, but I'm gonna try to drive an extra mile to that one because they had that burrito thing I loved. Like that's what draws people back. Food service is all about craveability, whereas I feel like retail, you're already in the store, right? You're already going, and most of the time people go. I'm a list maker. Like I go to the store with a list. So if it's not on the list, typically it doesn't come home with me. And so, it's like my rule because it's so easy to get distracted in the
Oh,
grocery store.
absolutely.
Um, Absolutely. And so, in a retail setting, like people usually have what they're going for in mind. But in food service, like it's all about craveability. It's all about nostalgia. It's about, people wanting comfort food. It's about, filling a craving that somebody has in the moment, and you want that craving to be your product. So, we basically talked about the gold standards of each component, the gold standard chili. When you think of a chili dog, for that consumer, what chili do you think of? And it's kind of, for us, it was like the Hormel canned chili or like the Sonic chili dog chili. And so, we brought both samples in and I ate so many Sonic chili dogs. Oh my God. I don't think I've actually been back to Sonic since I've developed that
Dream
product
job,
because
but
I was
becomes a
like,
nightmare.
it was so much because yeah, when you eat a million of them, but it was like I would constantly go through and get chili, and then I would come through and I would get the Hormel chili, and we'd always be mixing chilies and just like, what are the experience? What are the notes? What is the textures? Like, what are we trying to hit? And then we kind of formulated our chili around that experience to really make sure that, what people are craving. People honestly, they go back to Sonic for their chili dog for a reason. What's drawing them back? And so we really tried to hit all of those nuances and notes and make sure that you have that same craveability and experience in our product as well.
So when you're actually tasting and you're saying this isn't right, this tastes a little bit better. Are you just writing down this batch tastes good and like how do you figure out what's getting closer? Like how are you actually like I guess going from one batch to the next, what is it that you're
Yeah.
like writing down? What are you looking for? Like how are you going from the next decision to be like, yes, that's it? Is it just this like instinct of, yep, we got it? Or is there something a little bit more scientific, I guess you could say?
If we're trying to match something, it's usually really easy because you match the experience. So you figure out flavor profile, like what are the major notes that you're getting? What order are you getting those notes? Where on the palate they're hitting? So if like you have a heat level, like where on the tongue is it hitting? Where is it hitting in the back of the throat? Do you get it in the tongue first and then the throat, or does it not hit you until like is it a latent heat? How long does it carry? What is the aftertaste? And so like you have all these little things. Like if you have um like a sauce component, like what is the wash on the palate? How does it wash over the tongue? What's the texture? What's the thickness? Is there grit? Is it just smooth? Is it creamy? Is it chunky? Are you getting notes of jalapeno? Is it a pickled jalapeno? Is it a fresh jalapeno? Are you getting green notes? Are you getting crisp notes? Are you getting like brown notes of whereas like it's like a dried jalapeno that's been rehydrated? So there's all these little flavor notes, and so I try to make a big list of everything that we're getting and then an order in which we're getting it. Um, and it's kind of just you're throwing all the ingredients in, and then I always compare it to like a DJ booth. So like how they have all
Yep.
those little
Yep.
like scales, right? That's exactly it. It's like you have all the notes and now you're just pulling them up at different levels.
Ooh.
And so you just start tweaking amounts. And I try to have a golden rule that you only tweak one thing at a time to really make sure that you understand how it's manipulating the overall flavor and then how it's playing well with the other flavors. So, if it's a textural component, that part's easy. You can adjust that as you go. But if it's a flavor thing, the more heat you have, the higher, certain levels have to be for other things to carry. The higher your salinity has to be, the higher your acid has to be. If you want to bring heat forward, you can literally just add a little bit of acid, add a little bit of vinegar, and it opens everything up. Where sometimes that heat will come up and you won't actually have to add anymore.
Hmm.
You just increased your vinegar and it just opened everything up a little bit. It just brought it forward. So there's all those little things that you can tweak. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean is, I make a list and then sometimes we make a flavor map and sometimes it's literally just I have a formula, I have a note section underneath each formula. And so each one I'm like, okay, there's too much jalapeno, we're gonna drop it by 20%, or hey, there's this texture isn't right. We need a little bit more mouth appeal. Let's, increase the starch. Like there's all these different things. And so you just make a note of like, here's what we got. here's the next step, and then there's the next formula, boom, boom, boom. You see those changes, and then notes again. How did it taste? What textures are we getting? Does it hit what we want? And then you just lock in certain aspects and then tweak others until they're right.
I love how you have this, like, vocabulary as you're speaking, like, it's English you're speaking, but it feels like it's another language, and, to be able to it was something that I learned when I was doing a little bit of R&D was we were tasting, like, jams or we were tasting, like, curd, and I was like, "It tastes like lemon." That's all I can tell you. It's sweet or it's not sweet, and it really puts into perspective maybe when you're sitting at the dinner table with your family, like, how much you maybe this is different for you, I mean, I know that you have a rich, chef background, but for me, I'm not really thinking about, like, those exact words that you're using, and I love how you're bringing them out, and it's painting a picture in my head of this cheese dog or the, pardon me, this cheese that I haven't even tasted yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's fun. I mean, when my husband and I go out to dinner, we have a habit of if we like something, we immediately start picking it apart. We immediately start going back and forth on how can we replicate this at home? How can we make this better at home? Or if something just didn't hit, we immediately go like, what doesn't hit about it? What is it missing? What would make this better? And it's like we could immediately identify like, oh, they're missing acid. Oh, they just need more salt. Oh my God, if they just did a little bit more pepper, you know what would pair really well with this? Like we would always it's so, I mean, we have fun going out to eat, but there's also some times where it's like, if we can make it better at home, we're not going
Right.
back. And so sometimes it ruins when we go out. But, you know, it's such as the life of a chef, I suppose.
Well, speaking to me, that's a skill being able to articulate, like, as a form of communication, communicating taste, but in terms of your work, what would you say are some of the other skills that have been really valuable for you?
Oh, goodness. Well, I work in a corporate setting. So I deal with all different, departments. I deal with marketing heavily, which is, very creative people, very out of the box thinkers. And a lot of times, especially, I would say chefs, but very much on the food science side, everything is precision. Everything is, with a meaning, everything is well thought through. You have a formula, you stick to your formula, you follow it process for process. And marketing is very open, outside
Yep,
the box
yep.
thinking. It's very different personalities. And then we work with sales a lot. And so, when you're working with sales, everybody's a number cruncher or everybody is, it's not about the pitch, it's about the relationship. It's building the relationship, it's building the trust. And it's all about, you're selling the product, but you're selling the relationship. And so I've learned a lot about sales. I deal a lot with sales. I go on sales meetings a ton. I have direct relationships with our customers, especially in a co-development setting. So in a lot of ways, I kind of do sales as well. Um, I work with, our executive team a lot when, it's decision time and we need to figure out what projects are going to move down the pipeline and which ones are going to kind of halt for a while. Our CEO is constantly walking the halls. He pops in all the time just to see like, hey, what are we working on? And, come grab a coffee in the kitchen. And so, it's great to have I mean, I have windows in my kitchen that go out into the corporate office for a reason because I want people to walk by. I want everybody to come in and see and feel connected to what we're working on. Um, because we have IT and accounting and like all these people that it's very easy to become disconnected from the fact that, hey, we're a food company and we're making really cool things. And so if we have a product launch, I do an internal product launch for the company. So like we're doing one in 2 weeks. We had a new sausage line go out. And so we're bringing in a bunch of product. We're cooking a bunch of it up. We're giving people product to take home and go try with their families. And we're just doing like this big 2 hour internal launch to get everybody excited about the new items that come in. So, I think a big thing that's been super helpful here is learning how to connect with people with different personalities, working with different personalities. Empathy is a big thing that comes up in corporate offices, that I feel like a lot of people don't really focus on, and I was very fortunate to have a theater background, and so the fact that I have a theater background and the whole behind the scenes work of character work and understanding people's drive and what drives their decisions, what makes them think the way they do, if they have an opinion, where is that opinion coming from? Nobody has an opinion and they know that they're wrong. Like nobody is going to be steadfast on, I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to continue arguing this anyway just for the fun of it. Like
Right.
nobody
Yeah.
does that. So everybody thinks they're right. So then you have to kind of take a step back and go, okay, their opinion is different than mine, but they think they're right. I think I'm right. So why do they think they're right? What am I missing that maybe I don't know the whole picture, or maybe they don't understand all the background I have? So how can I calmly and concisely explain what drew me to my conclusion? And so, being able to approach different personalities, have patience with different personalities, and understand that, I mean, chefs are notorious for not getting along with anybody. So, right? And so in a corporate setting, that's not always a great combination. But, I've been very, very fortunate to always be able to work with, I think, really well with and multiple personalities, and every department. I don't have issues with any department. I can go out with sales on sales meetings. I can go into the crazy ideation sessions with marketing. I can bring in the suppliers and we can have multi-department meetings. I've led multi-department meetings. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing to say theater, but it helps so much. It helps so much in having, ending up in corporate and dealing with corporate and, all these different people.
Would you have any suggestions on how some this is a weird thing, how do you cultivate empathy? No. But you have the theater background, so I mean, do you have any suggestions about how, like, I don't think a lot of people probably have theater backgrounds, so there must be some other ways. Do you have any recommendations?
Go take an improv class. Like yeah. No, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That is, oh God, especially chefs, don't do that. That would be a horrible combination. Um No, I mean, honestly, LinkedIn is such an amazing resource. There's so many small little, especially LinkedIn Learning. There's so many really cool topics on LinkedIn Learning that can talk about, just communication skills, and before, even going into a meeting or going into a difficult conversation, before you go into any kind of a positive or negative, and before you go into any critical conversation, make sure you understand your own narrative. Make sure you understand what you're trying to get out of the conversation, what your goal is, and the path that you want to take to get to that goal. So, before you grab somebody in a hallway because you're heated about something, really take a step back and think about, okay, what is the issue? How do I feel about it? And what am I trying to gain by speaking to this person about how I'm feeling? And, as long as you can go into good conversations like that and you can really clearly understand why it is you feel the way you feel, what it is that you're actually feeling, and what you're trying to get out of what you're about to say, like what's the end goal, then I mean, that's super, super helpful. Being able to reflect on your own feelings, I think, is the first step to really understanding empathy, because a lot of people aren't even empathetic to themselves. A lot of people don't take the time or the patience to understand why I'm angry. They're just going to go yell at whoever is the next person they see because they're angry. And they have that emotion fresh, and it's just it's right at the surface. And all I want to do is just explode, but I don't know why. And, it's like if you get really crappy news in the beginning of a day and it's like not even 10 o'clock in the morning, the rest of your day is ruined. Even if good things happen throughout the day, there's like a dark cloud over everything. And it's just because that emotion is right there. Right. So if you just kind of take a step back and you're able to reflect and process and get it out and figure out why am I frustrated about that one thing? It's just that one thing. And everything else has its own little emotional slot. And then once you have all these good things pile up and you realize, like, I've processed that and I get why I'm frustrated and that can be addressed at a different time, you can enjoy those other little things. It's the same thing with approaching a conversation with somebody else. It's, once I understand where I'm coming from, I can kind of start to lean the same way to understand where everybody else is coming from.
Can be really hard. I really like that advice to take a step back, just breathe, think, why, ask the why to yourself. Why am I feeling this way? How would I want, be do unto others what you'd want done unto yourself? Like really thinking about it from the other perspective. And I would want to chime in as well with, I know you mentioned theater, but as well, if you can't go into a theater class, I've heard reading fiction. I know you mentioned like doing the LinkedIn learnings, but surprisingly, reading a lot of fiction, I find, helps you like see a different view, see a different lifestyle that you might not even
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah, it's all
Yep.
characters. It's all characters, right? And, I mean, the villain in the story never thinks they're
Yeah.
the villain.
Good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Right? I mean, unless you're Loki and you're just mischievous, like, like, everybody if the villain has a reason why they're making the actions or, making the decisions that they're making. And so a lot of it is because they think they have good intentions, and they think that they're doing the right thing, and they think everybody else is, like, screwed up. But really, they're the one kind of causing issues.
Oh yeah, and especially in media right now, like we went from like the 90s with I'm just a bad villain because I'm a bad villain, but I think that there's even been a shift in like
Yeah.
modern movies to they have some like you said, they don't think they're the villain. So, but
Yeah. They don't think they're the villain, and nobody like, it's same thing. Nobody's gonna argue knowing that they're wrong, right? Everybody's the hero in their own narrative, and so it always comes back to the same thing. It's, why do they think the way that they're thinking? What background do they have? What knowledge do they have? What are they missing, right? What can I help fill? What void can I help fill?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love you speaking about knowing about everyone in the different departments because everyone has their own, KPIs to meet and that. And it gets, you mentioned even earlier about that sometimes people can forget that, you're producing a food, like you don't maybe because you're really head deep in the food. But if maybe you're in the IT department, you can forget, oh, I'm actually, making a product, like I'm working with the team to help build like a great product in the end for someone to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was doing cook validations all week last week and the beginning of this week. And so if I have a whole tray of corn dogs or tray of burritos, I will just take them over to the other side of the office and I'll bring a pile of napkins and a sheet tray of product and I will just like go desk to desk and just like a corn dog, corn dog. Would you like to try like would you like to try this thing? Like, hey, we just made this. Or if, we're trying out a new formula and we want people, we'll go walk around the office and see who's here, who's not in a meeting and say, "Hey, can we get your opinion on something? Come try this." Because at the end of the day, like I'm not always the main consumer for the stuff that I make, and somebody else in the office probably
Mhm.
is. So I want their opinion because they're going to be the ones who will be like, it's really good, but I don't know if I would go out of my way to go get it.
Mhm.
It's good if it's in front of me, but it's not quite craveable yet. No problem. What am I missing? And then getting their opinion. And they might not be able to express it with like, every single nuance that I
Mhm.
can, but I can usually like draw those answers out of them and figure out what it is that they're missing.
You mentioned earlier that you were in theater, and I'm guessing that you didn't just jump from a theater job and then somehow managed to get a job in product development. Like, I bet there was a lot more to it. So, why don't you just talk us through some of the key steps to how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So, I mean, culinary was always the plan. I found culinary as a career when I was 12 years
Oh,
old.
wow.
So I went to yeah, I went to a college fair in when I was just in junior high. I was just getting out of junior high, about to go into high school. And I was one of those nerdy kids. I had to know where I was going to college before I was in high school. And so I needed to know my direction. Like, what's the end goal? Where am I going? Same thing I do now. I have to know the end goal. That's how we get there. And so yeah, so I found CIA. I went to San Francisco to a college fair and, looked at Harvard, looked at UCLA and all the places you're supposed to want to go and all the Ivy Leagues and, nothing was everything was like, cool. Like here's the product catalog. Here's the here's the like the major catalog and here's like the different things that you can, get degrees in. And then I walked by this booth that had this gorgeous brick building and, surrounded by green lush trees in upstate New York. And it was the CIA. It was the Culinary Institute of America. And that was the first time that like it clicked, like, oh my God, I could cook forever. Like 'Cause cooking was like my
Yeah.
heart and soul even as a kid. My aunt taught me to cook when I was young. I would spend summers with her up in our cabin, in like the family cabin up in the woods, and we would cook all summer. I'd be there for 2 weeks and it felt like the whole it was just nothing but food. It was so fun. Um, and so, food was always just like this passion project for me. I went through so many easy bake
Oh
ovens as a
my
kid.
gosh.
I would make I would make, like, these little cakes for all of our neighbors for their birthdays, like, everybody knew they were getting a cake from Kayla, and my mom has pictures of me, and I was probably, like, 1 or 2 sitting in the grass with a bowl, picking specific strands of grass, making a recipe of, like, just, like, all these little things, and I was an only child for the first 12 years of my life, so I had a lot of downtime. And so, I turned we had a second living room, and it was like my playroom, and I turned it into a grocery store, my kitchen, my dining room. So I had the whole grocery store laid out with, like, categorically, like, I had the produce in one. Oh, yeah. Produce was in a section, all the box goods was in a section, meat was in a section, dairy was in a section, register was at the back. So you'd go around and you get your groceries, you'd go pay for it, and then there was, like, the kitchen in the corner, and then there was a little table, and, like, I had the whole setup. And I went, "Oh my god," I had so much play food, so much play food. It was like food was just it was my life. It's always been my life. And so when I realized that, like, culinary was this thing that I could actually do, it was just like all the fireworks went off. Nothing else mattered. And so, the high school I went to was Performing and Fine Arts Academy, and that's really where, like, my theater bug started, and I loved it. I still do. I love the theater. When I lived in New York, like, Broadway was my favorite part. Broadway and the food scene, of course, but, like, I love Broadway. And so, I even in the theater setting, though, like, when I would, write little one acts or write little things, character was always a chef. It was like it was always I was always putting these little, like, foodie things into everything I did. When I would took my sculpture class, I made a lobster tail. Like, when I was in my art class, like, I would do still lifes of fruit. Like, it was always food. I didn't care what I was doing, food was in the center of it. And so when I graduated, I was supposed to go to culinary and go straight out, and then I was like, I wanna open a restaurant eventually, and I didn't trust people with my finances blindly, and so I'm like, "I'm gonna go do business first, and then I'll go to culinary." And so I very much switched senior year, and it was just like, I really just wanna make sure that my finances are in order on my own, and I understand the business side of a restaurant before I actually go into culinary, and I knew me, if I went into culinary first, I never would have gone back to college. Like, I would have just been so excited to just get back into that world, and so I was like, if I'm gonna go do the whole academia thing first, like, that's gonna be the best way. So I went and did, a degree in economics first with, business like, it was business management economics with an emphasis in accounting, and so that was all about just number crunching, keeping books. Um, and while I was there, I was sous chef at a restaurant, I ran my own cake line, I was head of catering for the Santa Cruz Shakespeare Festival every summer, and then I did a barbecue line with them, like, I was anything that I wanted to do, they let me do
So
it
cool.
because it brought in people, and it was just like, "She's gonna do it, and she's gonna execute it really well, so just let her do whatever she wants." And so I was so fortunate, but they saw something in me and they were just kind of like, "Just go do whatever you want." And so I had so much fun working in that restaurant. And then, I left, UC Santa Cruz and went over to CIA. I think I started 2 days after I graduated. It was like, graduate, pack up your stuff, ship half of it to New York, hop on a plane, get to New York, move everything to the dorm. I hit Walmart when we got up to Poughkeepsie and, like, just filled the dorm and then waited for my boxes to arrive a couple weeks later. And it was a whirlwind, but it worked out. I loved it. And so went to culinary, and then, from there, when I graduated culinary arts, I find like, that's when the culinary science program was starting. And my husband, my boyfriend at CIA, we met actually first day at CIA. So he's actually the one that found the culinary science program. There was, like, a poster at, like, the end of Roth Hall, And he was like, that sounds like something Kayla would really like. And so he brought me over to it and he's like, what do you think? And so it like completely changed the whole trajectory because it was staying on for the bachelor's program. So after you graduate from associates, you can continue on for the bachelor's. And typically it was just business or it was like wine studies or something like that. But this is totally new. And so this is the first program you had to like interview to get into. And so they only accept, I think they accepted 20 of us. And so we were like the inaugural class, but they had like a brand new lab that they had built in the basement of Caterina, which was the Italian restaurant on campus. And we started in there. And yeah, I mean, it was that was kind of it. We had an R&D portion within that program and one R&D class. I was hooked. I was never going back to a restaurant. You couldn't pay me to get back into a restaurant. Like that was the world for me. I've always been a math and science nerd. So the fact that I could combine my love for math and science with like my world of food, like say no more. That's it. That's where I'm going. Nobody could tell me anything different. Like that is exactly where I was going to be. And that's where I ended
Wow,
up.
I love that. I love how there's this like there's this somewhat planning, but then there's total planning at the same time, and then they just like beautifully merge together.
They did. They did. There was so many magical things that happened that just like it just aligned so perfectly. And in the moment, it's just like, well, plans are up in smoke, completely changing direction. But like looking back at it, it's like, no, you didn't. It just guided you exactly where you needed to be. So no, everything happens for a reason. I am that is to my core. I so believe that.
Yeah, and one thing that I also wanted to bring up is that I know that you are the chair of the new professionals for the Cactus IFT, and
Yeah.
you love talking with students and like new professionals and that. And I know that one of the things you wanted to talk about today was just about and this is a question I actually get a lot, is how you leverage your so a lot of students have maybe today they have just like a food science degree, and then it's like, how do you stand out with just a food science degree? And one thing that you had mentioned was about the like highlighting your non-work, like your non very specific experience to it. And I guess coming back to make a more specific question, how do you stand out with your non-traditional, like, work experience, I guess you could say?
A lot of it is cover letter. So, I mean, your resume is great. Like, put everything on your resume. And I would say, I mean, a lot of it is understanding relevance of your experience, like understanding the relevance of your non-traditional experience, I think is the best way to say it. I mean, like my theater background is not on my resume. It never will be. There is nothing about it that needs to be anywhere on my resume, but, that's what the cover letter is for, and it's just understanding. I mean, nobody's gonna put it on a cover letter like, "I'm super empathetic." Like, that's great, but that's kind of what your interview is for, right? Like, I mean, I've had a lot of interviews where people have said, "What is one thing that sets you apart that, might seem a little odd?" And I'm just like, "Theater." Like, my theater background, like, I am so yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that, like, I'm so thankful for it. The fact that I'm in corporate, I never thought I would be in corporate America. I was dead set on being back of house in the back of a kitchen in a little dungeon in the corner by myself, like, I was ready for it. I was okay with it. It was the plan. It's fine. Um, but now that I'm here, I'm so unbelievably thankful for having that background. But yeah, the resume is not any place for that. But I mean, I think one of the things that I would say is like breaking into R&D as a chef, only having chef experience, that is so difficult to do because a lot of companies don't know what to do with you. And they think that chefs and food scientists speak two totally different languages. So, how could you have the experience that we're looking for? And in many ways, they're not wrong. It is two very different languages. But at the end of the day, recipe development is formulation, right? Recipe development is process development, and implementation is no different than training somebody on the line. It's just in two different capacities. So, understanding how to verbalize what what your experience is and how it ties into the role. A lot of it is reading a job description. And if you can go through the job description and go, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, but your resume doesn't reflect it, then you need to go back into the wording of your resume and try to not match or mimic, but like try to mirror the key words. And like if they're talking about formulation and you're just talking about recipes, it kind of minimizes what you've done. So just flip it and talk about formulation instead. And then right away, it kind of matches. And so breaking into R&D from culinary directly, I mean, I've had a lot of people that had a lot of issues, trying to jump over. A lot of it is also who you know in this industry. Um, Networking is everything. I mean, I cannot stress enough how much networking pays off. Networking is the only reason I am where I am. I when I was a student, I went to the IFT conference and I went to the RCA conference. And through the connections I made there as a student, that's how I got my first job. I met Jessica Goldstein at the first RCA conference. She was the head of, I was trying to say chair and head. She was the chair of the Research Chefs Association New York chapter, their region. And so I can't remember. I mean, it's been so long since I was part of that board. But I can't remember what the title is for those roles, but it's essentially like the president of the chapter. Um, and she introduced me to so many people at that conference and then again at IFT. And then when I was graduating, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, this is the type of role I'm looking for. And she kept her eye open and her ears to the ground. She kept connecting me with people. And then she's like, wait a second, I need help. Come work with me. And so she was like, come work with me until you can find something permanent. And I was just like, I love it. And so she ended up inadvertently introducing me to my next boss, who was also on the RCA committee with us. And so we planned an event together, and it was Katie David. She was the head of R&D for Garden Lights. And so by the end of us planning this event, I started working for her. And she just happened, and it wasn't even, she didn't say anything like, hey, I'm looking for somebody, nothing. It literally was, she happened to post a job on the CIA website because she was also a CIA grad working in R&D. And so she posted a job on our website. She posted it, I think, on LinkedIn or Indeed, one of them. And I literally just saw it because I was job hunting, and I sent it to her and I was like, hey, on the side, what is this? And what are you looking for? And I'm very interested. And so we had our meeting conversation and then we switched gears and had like an interview. And it was one of those serendipitous things that just worked out perfectly. And then it ended up being honestly the dream job. I got to do so much and I learned so much in such a short period of time. Being in a small company, it was such a blessing because I got to wear so many hats. I was trained in QA. I was trained in like food safety and quality. When our QA people went on vacation, I went and led all of the internal checks that we would do every hour on the hour. And I would, we had all the retains. Like I did the QA side also so that they could go on vacation. And I did the same thing working for Jessica. It was for a seasoning company called New Spice Seasoning out of, at the time, it was Hackensack, New Jersey. I can't remember I think it's Oakland, New Jersey. But now, yeah, so there it was R&D, but they trained me on QA first, so their QA guy could go on vacation. And so I took over QA for, I think it was 2 weeks, so he could go on vacation. And then came back and took over, and then I was trained on R&D and I got to do like the seasoning development. So, being able to be trained and cross-trained on so many different things, and now I have the background in QA and HACCP and SQF, and like at Garden Lights we hit SQF level 3 while I was there, and the amount of work and time and dedication and like stress and blood and tears and like, oh my god, like all the work that went into getting us to SQF level 3 was insane. And so I was so proud of that team, but like we celebrated as a family. Like that was really what it was. It was such a group effort to get us there. And so it was really, really cool. But to be able to, have your hand in the entire process, um, it worked out really well. And then, when I came here, having the fact that I knew everything from start to finish, I was hired here under project management. So I was actually hired here to do to manage their product development process. And one, to identify it and then help find levels and points of efficiency and like how we could shorten the timeline, and then to manage it and to manage all the projects within the process. But I knew what it took to get from ideation to a launch. And then it was just, okay, do this for 150 things at a time. And all the projects that we have, you're gonna sit there and manage. So I worked with every department in the company. That's how people knew me first here, was as the project manager. And then when I switched over to development, now I just have these awesome relationships with the entire company. And so, people feel a little bit more comfortable coming in because they knew me in a different capacity. And so, if they might not know the R&D team, they at least knew me. And so I got to be, kind of that liaison between our team and everybody else. Those little piddly things that you think like, oh, this isn't going to mean anything later, it totally will. It totally will. Like, no experience is bad experience. And, I can't stress that enough. The Every single opportunity that you have, especially early in your career, do not say no to anything. Unless it's like some weird under the table thing, don't do that. But like, if it's a legit thing in your office or your job or your restaurant or whatever you're working with, if anybody gives you an opportunity to like, hey, go join this team. Hey, go join this committee. Yeah, this is a volunteer thing. But it's not about the volunteer thing that you're going to be doing. It's about who else is going to be on that committee. Who else is going to it's the exposure to all those different people. You might have managers, you might have directors, you might have VPs, you might have a CEO on that committee that's just there for a volunteer fun Saturday. But the things that they'll learn about you and the things they'll learn about you in a very casual environment, people open up so much more in a casual environment. Go to the happy hour, right? It's just for exposure. It's just to build the relationships with people at different levels. It's get to talk to them, get to learn their background, right? What brought them to where they are? What is it that they took away from their early years in their career that could kind of help you? I went and did my MBA because of a conversation I had with our VP. And it was really just, I was trying to figure out what was next in my career. And I was looking at LinkedIn at all of our directors and everything that they had that I didn't. And everybody had an MBA. It's not on the job description. It is not on the requirement or the job rec. Like when you look at, um, the like the job posting, if they're hiring, nowhere on it does it say that an MBA is required. But it's kind of one of those things that like if you just start looking, everybody happens to have one. And so it's just like, well, if it's one of those things that I want to keep growing, whether it's here or somewhere else, like it just opens things up. It's just looking at opportunities, right? And then I ended up doing an MBA program that was honestly, it was so cool. It was through University of Arizona Global Campus, and it is designed for people who work full time. So it's one class at a time on your own time. It's completely online, which is great because I travel a ton for work. So being able to do stuff and not have to worry about, oh, I'm missing class, like being able to do stuff on my time. I could go do a show and then do an expo all day, go back to my hotel, do a couple class things, and then like I'm still on time for stuff. And so it worked out really great for my schedule. But every single class, they allow you to tailor what you're learning and what your experience is and like what the topics of all your papers to your job. Everything is meant for you to apply it to your job. And so I took a marketing class and I did a whole brand plan and marketing plan for a new item I was developing just as a pitch, just to say, like, hey, right? Or, to grow the department or just all these little things that you just have the opportunity to kind of like, it's like a practice run, right? So it's all these little things that I would have ended up trying to do anyway. Now I'm getting graded on it. So let's just make it, I'm going to do it anyway, right? And it was so cool. All these little things I would nerd out about at work, I just did for a grade at the MBA. And it was so helpful. And so now I have an MBA behind me and I get to put those three little letters next to my name. But it's also like, it was just because of a conversation I had with our VP of, what's next? Should I do a master's in food science or should I do an MBA? And it's really about opportunities, long-term opportunities, right? So, I mean, any opportunity that you have early in your career, I mean, if it's even if it seems small, in the long run, I promise, like everything has relevance. All experience is good experience. It will apply later. It will make you who you are, later. And if anything, it's a crazy story of like, yeah, I was on this crazy committee and this whole, event blew up, but you know, I know what not to do. Right? Every lesson is a good lesson. It's might suck in the moment, but right? Later down the road, it's just all you're learning is what doesn't work. It's never a failure.
Yeah, and I think it points out 2 different things. First, it also gives you a touch to see if you even like it or not, because you never like, how do
Yeah.
you know? And you have all these different experiences. But I think another thing that you had mentioned was the casual conversations, and I think that that doesn't get spoken about. Like, we say networking, network, and when you think of networking, it's going to these conference events, and yes, there's a bit of, like, there's a bit of this, like, casual conversation, but it never really happens until, like, afterwards. Like, I've gone to science conferences and, like, during the day, we're talking about the research, we're talking about the science, and, like, I kinda have, like, my walls up because 'cause I'm just ready to talk about the science, but then, it's 7 p.m. and then everyone's like, "Okay, let's go out to eat," and then you wait, like, a little, like, an hour later, and then that's where, like, people start to know each other, and then that's when you actually really get to like, remember the person, you get to know the person. It comes to, I guess, that, like, empathy thing, it comes to the relationships, and, like, that's real networking. It's not just the business cards and the handshakes, but it's also just getting to
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we have a sales team, well, buyers or a customer, we have a customer come in and we're doing like a big sales meeting here. We always try to take them out for dinner the night before. And it's just to open them
Mhm.
up. It's to get to know them on a personal level first. We're all humans, we all have to eat. And so, you get this crazy conversations going about like the farm they run or the vacation they took last summer or just these or like pictures of their kids or their dogs. Like, it's just these little things to open them up as a human first so that tomorrow when they come into a stifled corporate office and you're going into, just a room or well, my demo kitchen, which is where I am, this is typically where it does it, but like it's still kind of it's an unfamiliar
Yep.
territory, right? So they're coming in as a guest into a space they've never been into before for a specific period of time with a goal in mind of us selling them something. But if they can come in here, like with hugs typically, because we just had an amazing night the night before, couple cocktails and lots of fun stories, and 3.5 hours later over a bunch of food and amazing desserts. We probably nobody needed the calories, but they're so good. Um, yeah, like, but that's what it's about, right? It's building the relationships. Networking is the same thing. It's all about building the relationships with people. So that's what I mean that's why happy hours are such a thing. Like, it's to go out with the colleagues, even if it's the guy that you were just yelling at in the conference room because, they're delaying your timeline. Go have a beer with them. And then you'll probably solve it over the beer more than you're going to solve it in the conference room. So it happens. I've watched it happen. A lot of stuff is solved at those evening dinners that you could spend weeks on in the office, and everybody's just, banging heads.
Well, I think that I'm gonna leave it there, but I am going to ask you, okay, I say I'm gonna leave it there, and then I ask you 2 more questions, questionable,
No,
but
go for it.
so I guess,
Always.
I just wanna hear it from you directly. We've definitely shared it throughout, but just if you could concise it down, like, what do you love about your job? Like, what makes you happy to go into work?
The people. I love the people I work with. I love the fact that they let me run with these wild ideas and, they let my creative side really flourish. But I love the fact that I get to also work with customers. I get to take their crazy kooky ideas that they're like, "It'd be really cool if we could have this," and then I get to make it come to fruition. And I get to put it in front of them, and then they get to go sell it. And it's like being able to be a part of that creative process and being the one who makes it happen and watching the joy on somebody else's face as they go and try a chili cheese dog burrito, or they go
Mhm.
try a churro, it's like those little things. I mean, food is nostalgia, right? At the end of the day, food is what connects us to each other. Food is what connects us to memories. Food is what connects us to a time and place. And, you know, it's not a restaurant, but I mean, I have such a wide reach with the products that I create, and it's being able to be a part of those little moments from any capacity is just really cool.
And then the last question that I always like to ask my guests is what piece of advice that would you like to give to those that are listening right now?
Network. Network, network, and do not say no to things. I mean, opportunities, they don't always come. And when they do, really, really think about, what could I gain from this? And don't be afraid to say yes, especially if it's just a weekend thing. Go have fun. It'll be a fun story later. But yeah, no experience is bad experience. And yeah, that's really it. I mean, so many things that I've done have been just from these small little conversations that turned into these big old things. It's the last podcast I did was with Ignite Food Service, and it was because Robert is Chef Robert, who was on it with me. He's our sales rep. He's who I bought all my beautiful equipment from. And I went down into his kitchen to go learn how to use it, and he sold me on the Alto Sham oven over the Rationale. I was always like steadfast. I will be a Rationale girl forever. Nope, there's an Alto Sham in my kitchen. That thing's amazing, and yeah, I mean, and then, we just volunteered at the Ronald McDonald House together, I think it was last month or maybe 2 months ago, but, like, we went and cooked and it was just like a fun little volunteer evening, but it's those little things. It's like, one little tiny day of training in a test kitchen has turned into, like, a bunch of opportunities and a great friendship, and, that happens in the corporate world, in the food world. The food industry is
Yep.
so small. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody is so willing to connect you to somebody that you might not know that they might know, or they might know somebody who knows that person. Like, everybody in this industry is so willing to share their experience and help you make those connections. So, it is it is the greatest industry. I really, really believe that, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Kayla, for coming on the show. Oh, hearing about how much you love your job, hearing about the intricacies, and now I'm going to go and get a burrito because I really, really sound
Yay.
like I want one.